I think there are two main types of security risk. There's the conventional security risk, the sort of issues that may concern businesses and entities that are working in Central Asia might be the personnel issue. So if there is political violence or terrorism or crime. The second issue, and perhaps most important, is the issue of contractual stability and the operational risks that businesses might face in the region. And that can arise from various problems initiated by the governments of the region primarily. Trade between Spain and the Central Asian region has historically been rather low in comparison with perhaps the UK, Germany and Italy. I think Spain's strength would lie in certain niche companies which have maybe a global footprint moving into the market. I can think of telecoms, for example, Telefonica, maybe certain pharmaceutical companies. And thirdly, I think retail goods, high-end retail goods, which the new middle classes of the region are looking to buy, and they will look very, they'll look very much at high-end European goods in clothing, for example. And it's in that sort of area that I think that Spain could make an impact. I think it's unlikely in the near term, certainly while President Nazarbayev is still in power. He's been in power now for 23 years, and there's no sign that he will relinquish power or retire. So we can expect that he will remain there until he dies, which may be 10 years down the line. After that, there may be some opening up towards a more democratic system. But in the short to medium term, I think it's unlikely. There's no real industrial base there. The agricultural base is more or less relatively small, based around livestock. There's little arable comparative to the rest of the sort of economic structure of the country. And therefore, I suspect that Turkmenistan will continue to develop its gas. I think once the country opens up in maybe 10 or 15 years, when the current leaders, if you like, move from the scene and there's a generational transition, if and when that occurs, it's got much more indigenous resource potential than Turkmenistan in that it's got a variety of metals and minerals. It also represents an interesting telecoms and retail market. The EU, Russia and China all pursue different objectives in Central Asia. Russia has obviously the history of being the former colonial power, the imperial power. China is mainly focused on resources. The European Union has more complicated and, if you like, higher aspirations for the region. It wants to involve itself as a political actor internally. At the moment, that's not happening. So rather than the EU as an entity making an impact in the region, I think it will be individual member states, particularly Germany, who will have the highest profile there. I think the main differences will be that the relationships, the historic relationships that the region had with Russia will slightly weaken, although the language and culture will remain a tie. I think on a political level, that relationship will continue to drift apart. I think that Central Asia will move more towards East Asia in the way in its trade relationships, and possibly to South Asia as well. The real conundrum is the relationship between the region and Europe, which has been one of underachievement and underperformance. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. If we look at the region itself, I think the main danger signs, if you like, things that are coming up on the radar, is a growing interest in radical forms of Islam among sections of the population. With that growing and a closure of the political systems continuing, that may need some attention in the sense that it may convert itself from sort of political or religious difference to something that might be a little more violent. The interesting part will be whether in the rest of, say, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan, there will be an Islamic factor that emerges